Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Tech.Strong.Women, where we feature amazing women doing amazing things in tech. I'm Jodi Ashley, executive producer here at Tech.Strong, and I'm here with my co-host, Tracy Ragan, creator and CEO of Deploy Hub. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to give you a quick update about what's happening here at Tech.Strong. Be sure to register for Tech.Strong.Con 2024 happening on April 3rd. Speaker submissions are still open, and we always love sponsors. And if you are in Paris this week attending KubeCon, please stop by our booth. Tech.Strong will be live streaming interviews from the event all week, and we would love to see you and say hello. You can register for all of our events by going to techstrongevents.com and be sure to tune in every day to techstrong.tv for great shows and interviews. Hey, Tracy, what's on your mind today?
Well, thinking about being in Paris sounds like a really good thing to talk about, but I'm not. But I do want to talk about open source. And, this is a lead into our guest today because she is an open source person. It's like myself. But I found this article about where the growth in developers is right now. Is that right? Yes, that's correct. So according to GitHub, Bangladesh and Nigeria are the two biggest year-over-year growth in GitHub developer accounts. Bangladesh grew by 66%. So think about it, and I'll give you the actual numbers if I can find them here. We're talking about from September of 2022, there were only 568,000 developer GitHub accounts from Bangladesh. At the end of September, it was 945,000. That's a lot. That's big growth, 66%. Wow. Nigeria, similar. They've grown by 45%. So it would be really great if GitHub is listening. And it'd be nice to think that somebody from GitHub who can make this happen is listening to our show. But it'd be really great if we had those numbers by pronouns, right? How many women or non-binary people are signing up for GitHub accounts? I'm guessing it would be pretty low. It would be an interesting insight to see. But the point is that for open source development, for recruiting teams for your open source contribution, it's global now. When Bangladesh and Nigeria and Pakistan are the top new kind of development communities, we have gone way beyond the normal suspects, which is United States and India and China. The United States has 20 million developer GitHub accounts, and India has 13 million. So the other countries have a long way to go, but it's great to see that they're starting to jump. And that's what I'm thinking about today.
That's what you're thinking about today. All right. Well, thank you, Tracy. All right. Well, I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Ewelina Wilkosz. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I haven't done conferences for a while, so this is kind of a similar stress level and excitement. I'm enjoying it already. Yes, my name is Ewelina Wilkosz. I'm a software developer. I started my career in IT quite some time ago. I worked as a developer for a big product company for a few years, and then I switched to consulting. And I was consulting in what was then a very fresh, growing, popular DevOps area, whatever we meant by that at that time. And that's when I first got seriously involved with open source, and that was really exciting, and it helped my career a lot, and I guess I'll have time to elaborate on that later. I moved on to a startup for a while, and that was very exciting adventure too, but much less open source for a while at least. And now I'm happy to be back at a product company where I am officially a DevOps engineer, but I think I'm transitioning slowly into platform engineer, and open source is back on. So yes, that's me.
So what you didn't tell us about yourself is your work with the Jenkins community. I really want you to tell us about that because it's really, this is a very important topic. We do not have a lot of females that are in the world of open source. You and I are both anomalies when it comes to that, to be honest. So just give us some information about how you got into Jenkins, what the roadmap looked like for you to be where you are within the Jenkins community, and then let us know what you've been doing with the Jenkins community in your career.
Yes, of course, that's a very important part of my career, and it's just so big. I've decided to skip it in the presentation because it's basically like the whole podcast could have been about it. It's the first customer I got when I started working as a consultant had an insanely old Jenkins instance. I knew of Jenkins before. I've seen it. I've never been maintaining it, the Jenkins instance on my own. But it was a friendly customer. I was able to try things, but it was terrifying. It was, as I say, very old instance. It was kind of working or not working sometimes. When it was working, we were not sure why it was working. It was a mess. And I was producing insane amount of screenshots while trying to make it work better, fix things that were not working, and maybe try to upgrade it step by step, because the changes in Jenkins were and I guess are coming pretty fast. So it's screenshot after screenshot, sometimes very long screenshots because it was the old style jobs that was like a massive website, a lot of things to just manually type. And at that time, my colleagues from the company that was at the time called Pragma already had some proof of concept for Jenkins configuration as code approach. That I did introduce at this customer, and it did help very much. I felt much better. I didn't have to maintain the big collection of screenshots anymore. I wasn't afraid to click a button or remove something. So already a big step forward, but it still wasn't a solution that I imagine would work for everyone easily. It required you to restart Jenkins instance. It can take a few minutes, maybe more, maybe you don't have all the accesses to do that. It was working, it wasn't optimal. So me and my colleagues started figuring out if there is a better way to approach it. And I was very excited about the idea, even if I wasn't confident enough that I have skills to come up with something like that completely on my own. We started working on it. And I really don't know how it happened that Jenkins community learned about it. My colleagues probably were in touch with some of them, Oleg Nienashev or Nicola Delouf, Kosuke Kawaguchi. So we were put in touch. And I had a meeting with Kosuke, Oleg, Nikolai maybe. And I was preparing to meet those very serious people that create this very serious product that is so popular. And I was, of course, a little bit starstruck and a little bit scared. But we met and we started talking about what we want to do. And I remember, and I always feel kind of silly but happy when I get reminded of that, or when I remind myself when I talk to someone about it. Kosuke started describing the vision he would have for a configuration as code solution for Jenkins that would make sense for him, and I came prepared with my vision, and I was just listening to him and checking the points I had on my little piece of paper, and it was like, check, check, check. I discovered that we are on the same page very much, and that already gave me a lot of confidence that, okay, so maybe I don't have that much experience, but something's there. So that was the beginning. My colleagues and I from Pragma and some people from Jenkins community, we just started to work on the plugin, started building up the community, started building up the product, and that's how it all began.
You know why I love the story is that, first of all, you were very brave.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was signing up for.
But you did. You did know what you were doing, and you knew more than you realized. And the story unfolds. It shows how you found your voice in being able to bring solutions to people who you were starstruck by, right? And we all, if you're a Jenkins user, everybody know who Kosuke is, oftentimes referred to as KK. He initially built the platform, but he couldn't go it alone. He had to have other people in that process. And end users are so critical in defining an open source platform. And what you did was you represented that end user community and having the end user community come together with the contributor community, and you became a contributor in that process.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, so are you still working with the Jenkins community now? And were you ever on the board?
I wasn't. That's what I was going to jump into it, because it was suggested to me that I become a candidate to be a board member, and I was, again, the imposter syndrome. It fluctuates. I'm on top of the world, and then I'm like, what am I doing here? So I was asked if I maybe want to be a candidate, and I said, yes, sure, maybe, but like, what do I have to offer? And they said exactly the same thing you said. Like, you're the voice of the end user. We have a lot of people that are involved with Jenkins community for quite a while with the product, the security officers, and a lot of different roles. But you're a consultant that works with customers that use Jenkins. You use Jenkins. You represent them. You're their voice, and that worked for me, because again, like you mentioned, the gender misbalance in IT, and that's very much a problem in some aspects, and I would love to see it solved, so women or other genders, people just feel comfortable no matter who they are. But I am at the same time worried every time I'm being kind of selected to do something. Am I just a minority token? And I never got this impression with the Jenkins community. And even if I was kind of getting there, and like, maybe is it that they always had an answer that was like, you're not here because you're a woman. You're here because you wanted to be part of the community, and we believe you have something to offer. They were very welcoming in and supporting in that aspect. Currently, I do not work with Jenkins that much. So I felt it's not fair to people who are much more active for me to keep the spot on the board. But because, as I said, I was in a startup where it's not like open source is not possible to do open source in a startup. The focus was very much somewhere else. I wasn't that much involved in the community. But I missed it for a few reasons, and now I'm in a place where this kind of company knowledge sharing and open sourcing products becoming seems to be like a basic thing to do. Like that's the way we work. So I hope I can jump back in.
So here we are with a story about a person from Sweden, a person from Japan, and a person from Russia, who were able to collaborate and build an amazing tool. And I'm sure there were many, many others, but Oleg is from Russia, KK is from Japan, and you're from Sweden, which is why I thought
I'm Polish, actually, but I live in Sweden, and I started my Jenkins career in Denmark, so there we
go. So open source is global. Yeah, open source is a global effort. We are a global community, and we democratize technology. Open source democratizes technology in a way that anybody can participate. Now, I know it's not been that easy for women to break into the open source community. When you were really involved, how many other women did you meet in your journey?
I think, I don't remember exactly, but I think during the Google Summer of Code project, there were always some projects for a few years that I followed up where women were working on these projects, were participants. And then I met some of these women later at the Continuous Delivery Foundation events or the Jenkins World or DevOps World events. So there were women, but I wouldn't say it was anywhere close to being a gender balanced environment. And I do appreciate it in this one use case where we don't have gender neutral toilets and during an IT event, it's really nice to be a woman who goes to a toilet that's not occupied at all, ever. But that's that at the same time, I'm kind of joking, but at the same time, you can really see this long line to the male toilet, and the female toilet is empty, which is convenient, but says something, right?
It is a sign, right? It is a sign when there is not, I went to a Rush concert once and me and my girlfriend were sitting there. There was no one in line at the women's restroom. And there was a long, long line for the men's restroom at a Rush concert. And we sat there and laughed and laughed and laughed about the fact that there were so few women at this Rush concert. And I can tell you, most IT conferences I go to feels like a Rush concert, and there's always a spot in the restroom for women. It's so true. It's an indication. It really is an indication. So you are, you're an amazing person to hear that journey from. Really, I so much appreciate it. And when I first heard about you, I was like, why is your name not out there in the entire world? Why do we not hear about you more and more often? Which is why anytime I get a chance, I talk about you and I tell people to look you up, because women can learn so much. And that's the other thing I want to ask you. And I want you to kind of give us an idea of what your career looked like because of your involvement with that Jenkins project. How did it help you learn, and how did it help your career?
Well, it gave me a lot of confidence, and it allowed me to try different things. I don't think I would be where I am and who I am in like work environment without that experience. It was a massive change for me. I showed up at my first Jenkins Contributor Summit. It was a few weeks or months after we started Jenkins Configuration as Code. It was a small meeting, 20 people in a room right before FOSDEM. I went alone to Brussels. I was terrified. All the restaurants were closed because it was one of those days when they were closed. I really didn't know what to do with myself. But then here I am in this room, and someone says, "Well, maybe give us an update." It wasn't a very formal event, so everything was kind of like we were going with the flow. So I knew why I'm there, but I wasn't prepared to do anything specific. And then we were asked to give an update. So Nicola suggested we do it together, since we were together working on this thing. And we just presented it, and it just went really, really well, I would say. It was improvised, but we had a good flow. And then that kind of gave us the idea for me and Nicola to present at conferences together. And I have to say, I don't think I would dare to go and present at a big conference on my own at this point. But I had this person next to me who was like my maybe not colleague from the same company, but we worked together a lot, and I felt comfortable with him, and we just had fun, and that was really helpful. So I did get help from him. I did get a lot of support from other members of Jenkins community, and then we started building up on that. And then at some point, I had been presenting at the DevOps World or Jenkins World, I don't remember the name, in San Francisco in front of a lot of people on my own. And 2 years before, I don't think I could ever imagine. So that gave me a lot of confidence. There is also
in 2 years' time, you went from relatively, being obscure, nobody knew who you were, and you're presenting at DevOps World or Jenkins World. Yeah, that's an amazing
but
path.
I think I still don't feel that I have like some truths to share. So that's why you're not hearing about me, because I'm not ambitious enough for that. I enjoyed my time as a consultant, where I was going to the company and they had some problem. And all I really cared about is that at the end of the day, these people that I'm helping are happier after I'm done than they were before with how their work looks like. So I'm I don't know. I think it's important to share. Community is amazing, but I think it's easier for me to find joy and stress a little bit less when I have this one person or one team that I'm helping.
See, I think that's amazing, because Tracy knows I struggle with that too, because she dragged me kicking and screaming to do this show with her. And I've been doing it for 18 months now, and I'm having a blast doing it with Tracy. And I feel the same way sometimes. I don't know that I would go do it. If Tracy wasn't available, I probably wouldn't do one by myself. But I think that's good. I mean, I got to say, I've sat at conferences with some really horrible speakers who thought they were fantastic, and they were up there blathering, and you're like, wow, someone needs to give this person some public speaking coaching. So I think it's okay. It's good. You know what makes you happy, what makes you comfortable, what is absorbed by other people in a way that also makes you happy. And you should be applauded for that.
But I appreciate the opportunity, because here I'm not trying to be a thought leader, that I don't feel like a good person to even make an attempt. But I get to share my experience in this conversation. So that's a nice opportunity for me, and I thank you for that. But I really was very happy when you told me you want to talk about open source, because it kind of refreshed my warm feelings to the topic. I kind of got reminded what I did, and when I did, I wanted to prepare some things for work, but also for that, and I checked my name on YouTube. And then I got reminded how many of these conferences I did, and how much stress it was, and how much fun it was, and like how much I really did. And it's nice to get reminded every now and then. So
well, and you're not, one thing you're not, and I will say it because I don't think you will. Jenkins Configuration as Code changed Jenkins. It changed it in a huge way. It made it far more accessible. It made it easier. You could version the pipelines. It changed it drastically. You said you were not a thought leader, but you have been one in the past. And you've demonstrated that ability. So I want you to remember that as well, because you were pushing that configuration as code model for Jenkins. And you had the checklist, and you sat down with Kosuke, and you went through that checklist, and you guys had a meeting of the minds and say, yeah, this is the direction we need to go. That was an important piece of the success of Jenkins. Did you know that today, I think Mark Waite had, CloudBees reported that Jenkins manages about 90 million workflows a month?
I had no idea.
And you helped create that.
I will not try to be too humble. I know there is a little part of me that or I affected part of it, but I do want to say that it's a massive effort to run such a big open source project. I have no idea how they did it, and it is very impressive. And the amount of administration they have around it is well, I guess it took time. They didn't start with the framework they have now. They were building up, but there is a lot of work put into maintaining the community, and it's probably sometimes even harder work than maintaining the product itself.
Yes, I always say Mark Waite, who works for CloudBees and he supports Jenkins, is an unsung hero. And I'm going to make a plug for the Continuous Delivery Foundation. So Jenkins was an open source project that was under CloudBees, for those of you who don't know. And about 4 years ago, CloudBees and Netflix and a couple of other companies started the Continuous Delivery Foundation, and then those open source projects became underneath those. Jenkins it costs money to maintain Jenkins. It is not an inexpensive open source project that CloudBees has supported for quite some time. And now it gets supported through sponsorships through the Continuous Delivery Foundation, cd.foundation. However, we need more. Jenkins needs its end user community to step up and really become members of the CD Foundation as end user members to continue supporting that product. It can't do it alone. And it can't do it through a nonprofit who's only getting support from a few high level companies. It needs its end user community to flourish. Just like you were able to take that product to the next level as an end user, the end user community is still needed. And in some ways, the big banks and these big insurance companies, Jenkins is used in so many big companies. We need those companies to step up and start supporting Jenkins. So I'm just going to let it out there that Jenkins there is some risk now towards Jenkins if the end user community doesn't continue to support it, not just through code, but through funding it in some way. So there.
No, I was, but that's very important. I was thinking about that today. How in one way it's such a win to have a project like that and be able to use it. Anyone can just use it, but there is also this risk that, well, Jenkins is massive. There is a lot of smaller products that may be thriving for a second, but then people will get tired, busy with something else. The funds will run out. Like this is free to use, but not necessarily free to make. So I wonder what makes those thriving, long-living projects to last for such a long time, and I also worry whenever I try a new open source project, is it something I can trust is going to be here in 2 years or for whatever how long I want to use it. So that is a challenge. And I was involved in another open source project kind of on the sidelines, and that was a fresh product. And I saw with my own eyes how difficult it is to gather people, make people aware of whatever's going on, activate them, with even creating issues. That's insane amount of work. I think Continuous Delivery Foundation is doing a great job with their projects. And actually, I was watching some presentations about platform engineering because I want to become a better platform engineer. And there was one from Pia Nilsson from Spotify. She presented it at the EFICode conference last year. And she mentioned there that she really believes, I have a quote, so I'm reading. She really believes in the open source ecosystem because that's how we win as a community. But you do need to have this community and you have to know how to build it, right? And then they donated backstage to Continuous Delivery Foundation too. So it becomes protected through open sourcing so they could remain relevant. So it's nice where there is a company behind open source product and they make it really open source and available for others, and their engineers can work on this open source version because there is a way for both company and free users to benefit from the same thing. But I guess it's still quite a challenge. So I'm always happy to see companies doing that, but I personally, if I was to start my own open source project, I have no idea how to start it. I'm just so impressed by what these people can do, how they can run the community.
Yes. So I love that statement. I think you said open source is free to use, but not free to make. And the reason why the Linux Foundation and the Continuous Delivery Foundation is important for open source projects is because it allows for open source projects to be supported by a nonprofit, right? As opposed to CloudBees having it. If who's going to donate money to CloudBees, right? The whole idea was to create a platform that's nonprofit so larger end users can make donations, and they're donating to a nonprofit. So that is the key with these like the foundations that support these open source communities, because it gives a way to support them and keep them alive for as long as we possibly can, right? And support it and relevant.
Exactly. The fact that the Pia mentioned is staying relevant. It's like such an easy way to get potential end users being involved with the product without making them pay. So you have a bunch of people that use your product, maybe complain about your product, and then you can get better.
Exactly.
So that yeah.
So let's pivot a moment here. What is new in your world? You say it sounds like you're doing some other stuff. Let's hear what you're excited about today and what's new.
Yeah, the platform engineering, it kind of relates to what I mentioned before, how I am unambitious on the global scale, but how much I care about how people feel about the improvements or what I hope our improvements are. I joined one of my former colleagues at Velux, which is kind of funny because I now work for the company that makes Windows, but it's not the Windows company. They make actual Windows, and surprise, surprise, they have a massive IT department and developers that create some really crazy, complicated projects. And the tool stack they have is just like starting to think about it gives me a headache. I'm not up to date. I don't think I could release the way they release now because it's just like I didn't learn these specific tools and then I'm behind. So, of course, I'll learn those tools so I can make it better for them to use it. Again, the little I was reading about platform engineering and this presentation from Pia was really good, like the context switching and cognitive load are quite an obstacle for developers these days because they were given freedom and the freedom became very, very, very complicated. And this is a challenge that excites me a lot. Like, let's make something easier, better, more effective. And this context switching speaks to me a lot. So I personally love to keep everything in one window. So I'm writing my little command line tool that I work on now. So developers can just very easily see whatever they need to see. So, like little bits and pieces, but that's what excites me. That's what I'm working on. So I am kind of, I don't know, like there's a little bit of soft part, like non-tech part of that, figuring out like what do you really need, what bothers you, then high-level solution, and then I get to actually code this solution, which is a nice way. So I don't work all the same, don't do the same things the whole day. There is a lot of variety in work.
So are you working in a cloud native environment, and do you have any thoughts on how the pipelines, the DevOps pipelines, are changing to support like microservices and the release process with these independently deployed components?
Yeah, it is a cloud native in big part, I think, at least. I started not that long time ago, so I don't really know the whole thing yet. But yes, it is cloud native. And just to sidetrack a bit, I remember when I started working for the previous company, for the startup, we were using one cloud provider, and I got to learn how to do things there. So maybe I could create something on my own if I needed. I wasn't a big Opsy person, but I knew how to do certain things. And then we migrated to another cloud, and then all my skills were gone because the other cloud had such a different interface. And I think that's a big trouble. So what we're trying to do is my team focuses on in big part on this developer experience and platform engineering. We're trying to like abstract all these things behind a very simple, intuitive tool. So developers actually don't have to care how the release looks like, don't have to care how to manage Kubernetes, administer Kubernetes or whatever tools we're having. We want them to have a tool that's as easy as Git to use and all the information available basically under their fingertips. And I think there is a lot of GitHub action going on. There is a lot of GitOps going on. So there is a lot of moving pieces that if you have them up and running, then you can forget about it because it works. But if you migrate from one platform to another, or if you're a new person who starts working in an environment like that, I imagine it's a pretty steep climb to learn what the process looks like, and how to release, how to do this or that. And again, because of the freedom, a lot of companies give to their developers, the fact that you learn how to do it in one place or in one service doesn't mean it's going to work the same way for another service. So there is a lot of tricky parts that came as a result of this freedom that I'm enjoying a lot. But yeah, it's
sort of like the early days of Jenkins when everything was done through the command, the windows, and you had to do screenshots.
Yeah, and then everyone had their own plugin to do their own little thing. And I remember I was so excited. There's plugin to do this. There's plugin to do that. There's Chuck Norris plugin that I don't know what it did. And then you learn, okay, we have no idea what's going on here. So yeah.
So you're working in manufacturing now. Is there discussion about all the security issues and the cybersecurity and supply chain security? Is there discussion on that and how you can bring that into that platform engineering?
There very much is awareness of the need for the security. I am not that much involved in that part. I think that part scares me because this is a serious responsibility there. But no, like really, I didn't really get into security that much. But the supply chain is, I think I've heard the expression supply chain from every of my former colleagues working in that I was working with as consultants. So this is very much an issue. The project I'm currently working on is supposed to allow developers to easily collect information about different stages of software development, of development process their changes are in, and easily access this information even from their IDE. And that's, for me, that's the information. But the startup I worked for before was focusing a lot about that, and compliance and things like that. And then the SBOM showed up on my horizon. Now we need to keep the SBOM. We need to know all dependencies. So the little project I'm working on now, this kind of collecting information for all the steps my change went through. One of my colleagues immediately came up with the idea, but we maybe want to be able to connect the information from the dependencies, so we can have. I know I'm not explaining it well enough. I'm not doing demo of my project here. Bottom line is the supply chain or the dependencies. Everyone wants to have them visualized in a nice way, and SBOMs, as far as I can tell, can become massive. So they may be an interesting source of information, but good luck browsing it. So that it's the topic. It's definitely there.
Yeah, or
you have to be careful. Tracy's obsessed with SBOMs.
Yes,
so I was scared when anybody brings that up.
Ortelius initially was graphing dependencies, and it turns into is a massive hairball because there's so many. It's like it's not a useful graph anymore. Yeah, so we started figuring out what's the key things we have to graph, and we started realizing.
How deep do you go? Yeah.
How deep do you go, and then what do you do and just lift? What is it? Doesn't matter anymore, and all you want to do really is to be able to search for packages. Search for tell me where log4j is being used. I don't need a graph of it because the graphs can get they look like a hairball. They look like a massive Death Star, and that's what I used to call them. They're just massive Death Stars, and there's no use for to look at a map of a Death Star. And so we started
maybe to scare someone.
I like hairball better.
That's what it looks like. It's crazy. And we're like, why is this useful? It can't be useful. We have to be able to, there is useful information though, like being able to say, here's a logical application and these are the components it uses. And now here's all the component SBOMs and aggregate it up to an application level so we can see it all. But that is a whole different topic that I could really dig into. And I'm sure you could too. Ewelina, this has been so amazing. before we drop off, though, I want you to, what would you say to a young woman who just got out of school or might be in college to encourage her to join an open source project?
I have a perfect answer for that. It's and I have to use a little story for it. It's short. So my brother is working in IT. He's not a software developer with a lot of experience, but he wants to grow his skills. So every now and then we come up with some little project. Oh, it's time to learn Docker. So let's imagine this or that. And then it often dies, because how excited can you be about the dummy project that like really means nothing or is just like created forcefully in your head so you can use Docker or something. It's much, and there is so many things you have to learn around it. It's much better. And I told him to do that. I told my colleague who was wondering how to improve his web development skill, find an open source that's using technologies you wanna learn, because you'll have real tasks, real issues to solve, and community of people who can help you with that. And of course, we're all people. We will have better days, worse days. Not everyone will be always as nice as we want. So it can be challenging at times. Not every community works the same way, but I think it's worth the risk and worth trying. It's an amazing opportunity to become part of something and give something back, because I'm sure like we all use some open source software, so it's a nice way to give back. But really just for yourself, you get a great opportunity to learn on a real life example and get help when you need this help.
Exactly.
And sorry, you can really start with just contributing issues or code reviews, or you don't have to create new features or solve bugs or whatever. You can start really small, just become part of the community and see how it goes.
Adoption and creating issues is huge, right?
Yeah.
Learning the tool and creating issues, even if it's not in your production environment, you're just, you become part of the community, and it's such an amazing way to learn.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. What a great conversation. Tracy, I'm glad you reached out and grabbed her for us. What a great conversation. For everyone watching, thank you so much for watching another episode of Tech.Strong.Women. There's a bunch more Tech.Strong TV to watch, so keep watching today and tune in soon. We'll have another episode of Tech.Strong.Women. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.